Have you ever had a really great run with your content? Like you're in the flow, the ideas are coming, you're showing up consistently, and it feels really good. But then, something happens. It doesn't even have to be a big thing. Life gets busy, client projects take over, you might lose a bit of momentum, and suddenly a week goes by without a post, then two. Then you're looking at your social media like it's a long lost lover who's been away way too long and doesn't know how to come back. I think that the way that most of us have been taught to think about content consistency is actually part of the problem. We've been told that showing up consistently means showing up and being available and being visible constantly, creating more and being everywhere. And that's definitely not the case. One piece of content, your best piece of thinking, can do more of the work for you. And that's what this episode is all about. We're going to talk about what I call reimagination, which is really just a more intentional way of thinking about repurposing your content. And I'm going to walk you through a simple flow I use in my own business so that you can start thinking about how to implement it in yours. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to this week's episode of the Content with Heart podcast. So lovely to have you here. Now, this week, I decided to revisit one of my core frameworks, which I call reimagination. Now, my message around content creation and content strategy is based on no shoulds. There are no shoulds when it comes to content, but that's kind of a white lie because I need to let you in on a secret here. There is one should that I really do believe can make or break your thought leadership and your authority. And it also happens to be the core of the idea of reimagination. And that is everyone needs to have a piece of core content. And that's a blog, a podcast, or a video. And I don't care how often you publish it. Well, actually, I kind of do. I think that at least once a month a minimum, but really, I don't care how often you publish it. But it's so important when it comes to having meaty, binge-worthy content that your ideal client can sink their teeth into. And on the flip side, make consistency so much easier for yourself. Now, before I dive into what it is and how to do it, reimagination is only one part of a bigger framework around consistency. And I talk about the 4Ps quite often. I'll link some of the previous episodes in the show notes below, but it's around the 4Ps of prepare, plan, produce, and process. Where prepare is getting all the ideas out of your head, plan is having a simple, super simple 90-day high level content plan. Produce is the creation of your core content, and process is how you build the support around you to bring your content into the world. And this last P is where reimagination sits. So just want you to keep that in mind as we go through the episode today, that there's some steps before we get to that process part of reimagination. So let's start with why knowing about reimagination even matters. I want to start here because I think that we can often skip the why and jump straight into the how and then wonder why it doesn't actually work for us. And as you know, I really do believe that you should pick and choose pieces from other people's strategies and ideas and frameworks and make it work for yourself. And consistency is rarely a result of not working hard enough. It's simply just a result of not having the right system in place around you that works for you. So really pick out the pieces that match with your time, energy, and resources, as well as your strengths. Now, when content feels hard to sustain, hard to keep going, it's usually because that system or the lack of one, I guess, that support around you doesn't fit who you are and how you like to work. So you're thinking about treating each different platform like a separate job. A new post for Instagram, a new email, a new blog, a new story, all of it from scratch, and all of it requiring fresh creative energy every single time. And, that kind of feels really exhausting to me just thinking about it, just talking about it. And the result of all of this eventually is that your nervous system just says no, and you stop doing things altogether. And so you stop creating content, you stop showing up, you stop your consistency. But there is something that you need to know about consistency, and It's really what builds trust with your audience over time. It's not, it's not, it really isn't about being everywhere. It's about being somewhere reliably. And that's why sustainability really matters, not just for your sanity, because it does, but because the content strategy you can't keep up with, that you can't implement, isn't actually a strategy. It's just really high level pressure that you're putting on yourself. So, what I want to offer you instead is something which is rooted in what I call minimum viable content. And the idea is simple. You don't need more content. You just need the right content working harder for you. And that really starts with reimagination. Now, when most people hear the term repurposing, they think, oh, post the same thing in 5 different places and, maybe change a few bits and pieces. And they probably think, oh my gosh, that sounds so boring. And that's not what I mean by reimagination. Although 100% that's perfectly fine, as in reality, people don't see every piece of your content you put out anyway, and they don't necessarily get it the first or even second time they see it. So if you want to put the same piece of content out over different platforms, different times, please go ahead and do so. But reimagination and reimagining your content is the idea of pulling the same core idea through different formats for different platforms so that your audience can meet it in a way that really works for them in that moment. Some people like to read, some people like to listen, some people like to scroll. The idea is the same, but the way it travels to them is actually different. I know that when I stopped treating every single piece of content I created as a completely new piece, a new creation, and started seeing it as really just this one idea moving through different corridors of the building, it really took so much pressure off me. And I really want that for you as well, because this place of creation became a place of intention rather than pressure or the should. So I'm really hoping that today's episode will bring you to that point as well. Okay, so here's how it works. It is so easy and so super simple. Now, everything starts off with what I call your core piece, so your blog, podcast, or video. And that video, can I just say, it doesn't have to be like a 20-minute video that you post on YouTube. It can be like a 5-minute Facebook or Instagram live that you then use to reimagine into your other piece of content. But it's this blog, podcast, or video that is where your full thinking, your full idea, your full message lives. It's the piece that takes the most from you, and really it should, right? Because it's where the depth is. It's where your ideal client really learns and understands what you're all about and your approach to how you do what you do. Everything else, every other single piece of content, your email, your social content, your other bits and pieces flows from this one piece of content. Now, remember, I'm not saying that it has to be a mammoth piece of work. Far from it, right? Your blog doesn't have to be 2,000 word in-depth article. It can just be a simple 600 word blog. That is what I used to do. A 5-minute video or podcast episode. It doesn't have to be, this big production. It doesn't have to be a big effort. So for me, obviously, this podcast is my core piece of content. So when I sit down to record, I already roughly know where this conversation is going to go next. I know it's going to become 2 emails. I know that I'll pull a line from it, a quote from it, a question from it for socials. And you know what? The best part is I actually get AI to help me ideate and then write them for me as well. Obviously, I make my own tweaks to it, make sure it's in my voice and make sure it makes sense. But it just makes it so much easier for me, given my time, energy, and resources. So when you're choosing your piece of core content, it's actually a decision based on your values and your strengths as much as the strategy behind it. It really should be in the format that is most natural to you, the one that doesn't drain you before you've even started. So many people say, oh, you need to meet your ideal client where they are, but what if you don't actually like that platform or don't feel comfortable using it? It makes you think, are they really your ideal client? So make sure that you lean into your strengths and your values and make the right decision for you, not the decision, not the strategy or the tactic that other people that you maybe admire do. Do what's good for you. Okay, so now you know what it is and why it's so important. Let's get a little bit practical. I'm going to give you the steps to reimagine and then give you an example of what I do. And this is not rocket science. So remember, reimagination is actually part of that bigger piece of consistency, the 4 Ps, the prepare, plan, produce, and then process. And it's the last P that reimagination comes into play. So the first step is create that piece of core content, your podcast, your video, your blog. Spend your best creative energy there. It's the piece that holds the most depth and does the most work in terms of building trust and demonstrating your thought leadership. It's the only should. There's only one when it comes to content strategy. And it's really the cornerstone for your thought leadership. I encourage you to really lean into this idea. So step 2 is just to pull one thread for your email. And I want to be really specific about this because I think people can misunderstand what a good email is actually about. It's not just a summary of the core piece of content, although in a moment I will actually explain what I do in terms of my process, but it's really thinking about one moment from it, a question that you may still be sitting with, a reflection, a shift in thinking, something that surprised you in writing or recording that piece of core content, something honest, maybe something human, a story that parallels or give an analogy, right? And then it points towards the full piece for anyone who actually wants to know more. And hopefully that's going to be everyone that reads that email. And then the third step is to think about the socials. So just choosing one sentence, one question, one insight from your core piece of content and post that, right? You're not trying to deliver the whole idea of your core piece of content in one post. You're creating enough curiosity that someone wants to lean in and come closer to what you have to say. And that's it. Core, email, social. One idea, 3 ways to express it. So for me, my own content looks like I create this podcast episode, I do the notes, the recording, publishing via Kajabi. The second is I do an email the following day on the Friday promoting the episode, taking that thread and encouraging people to be curious about the idea of the podcast. And then I also do an email the following Tuesday that takes one idea from the podcast, but tells it through a story or an analogy or something that's happened to me recently. I then create 3 social media posts. That's it. I only do 3. One is a reel, and that is a clip that I've taken from the podcast. One is a quote, and one is just like a general thought or a question I can ask my audience in relation to the theme of the podcast episode. Now, an added bonus for me here is that I actually upload 4 or 5 clips to YouTube Shorts, and that's super easy for me to do because I'm already in Descript, which is the program or the system that I use to do my editing of my podcast, and it automatically can create clips for me, so it's super easy to do. I don't think about every piece of content I create, but I think about one piece of content that I create this episode. I create it once and let everything else flow from there. Now, it's important to be aware of something here, right? You could so easily slip back into overwhelm by trying to do hashtag all the things. So please be mindful of this. I could quite easily create copious amounts of social media posts, but I don't want to exceed my time, energy, and resources. So I'm very, very aware of my capacity and I make sure that I create within that. And use that concept of minimum viable content. And I'll link the relevant episode down in the show notes about what that is and how you can bring it to your own business. But think about what you can realistically create that moves your business forward and is within your own personal capacity, not the version of you that has 10 free hours a week, because, oh my goodness, who has that? the version who maybe has two or two good ones at least anyway. And if the only thing that you create this week is your core piece of content, I want you to know that's enough. The email can go out next week. The social posts can go out a few days later. This isn't about helping you become a content creating machine, because we don't want that. That's where we lose the human. This is about being intentional and leading your ideal client through that client journey whilst making it as easy as possible for you as well. Being consistent is really about staying close to your audience regularly, not about high touch, high volume. So you don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be somewhere reliably in a way that feels like you. So we've covered off the philosophy, the flow, the permission for you to keep it simple. And I know that for some of you, this all may make sense in theory, but you're probably wondering what it actually looks like inside a real business with real constraints. And that's exactly what I do inside of my membership, The Content Effect. Through resources, live planning, and support calls, I can really help you take this framework and make it work for you. Your content, your capacity, your way of doing things. I'll share some more details about the content effect in a moment and where it lives, Kajabi. But first, let's take a moment to reflect. Now, you don't need to answer these right now if you don't have the capacity, but maybe just let them sit with you or come back to them later. So the first question is, think about your last piece of core content. If you have a piece, what was the one insight or one shift that came up in it? And did that idea ever reach your email list or your social audience? Question 2, what does consistent actually mean for you? Given your real time, your energy, not the version of yourself that you think you should be. And the last question is your current content system asking too much of you? What would feel like ease and relief? And what one change would make the biggest difference to how sustainable it feels right now? And if you'd like to know more about sustainable, easy content and the support that it takes to make it come to life, then I'd love to see you inside The Content Effect. I'm actually currently offering 6 months free when you sign up for Kajabi using my affiliate link in the show notes. There's other bonuses as well worth over $1,000, so make sure that you go and check it out in the show notes. I built the membership inside of Kajabi because I feel like it genuinely brings everything together. My content, my emails, community, offers, everything. And it does it in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. So if you've been thinking of upgrading or simplifying your tech, then Kajabi's current 50% off promotion, together with my bonuses, will give you the clarity and ease that you're looking for with your content. So that link again is in the show notes. Go and take a look. Send me a DM if you have any questions. So let's round out this episode with what I want to leave you with today. Consistency isn't about doing more. It is so not about doing more. It's actually about doing less, but with more intention. When you start with that really great, binge-worthy, meaty, strong piece of core content, and then let your email and social and other content flow from there, you stop starting from scratch every single time that you want to share your content with the world. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You stop feeling like you're constantly behind, like you're constantly being reactive. And you stay in conversation with your audience without burning yourself out to get there. And that's really what reimagination does for you and your business. It's not about cutting corners, but really, honestly, truly honoring your capacity and trusting that that one piece of content is good enough. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do your thing with heart always.